Okay, now give me 20 minutes. I have 7 slides. Actually, kind of a follow-up, or maybe providing a different flashlight to look into this black area. The title of my talk today is Clues of Measuring Cognitive System Capabilities, because nobody has done that successfully yet. But there are some clues. So my job today is to bring those clues to the table and for all of you to think about that. Okay, so the first one is vision question that might lead to a mission. So after tests of the IQ, EQ, GQ group quotient, and the MBTI, etc., can we find a way to measure the general cognitive capacity of the individual at a certain time point of his or her lifespan? That is the key question. And to measure, it could be a matrix. It could be a complicated index, like Lauren said, 7 modules and linked together, and each module may have a different kind of strongness, or one of them may be dominating the others at certain context or certain situation. So that is, if we could do that, I mean, this is just a far away, but if we could do that, it might be useful in job qualification, personal learning, and political communication, public education, etc. It might be a mission impossible. Okay, so it might be politically incorrect as well, but I'm interested in it anyway. It's a reverse effort of a so-called DEI ideology. So I dislike DEI very much. So that explains part of my incentive. Now, the first clue I need to introduce is this gentleman, Elliott, Jaques. He used to be a visiting scholar at my school, George Washington University. So he went to our classes. He's a good friend of one of my advisors, Jerry Harvey, in organizational behavior. Now, this is his major work called Stratified System Theory. This is not a temporary invention. He did follow-up works for about 40 to 50 years, following different individual examples. So this is a quite piece of very solid work. Here, he used a term called the time span of discretion. So at level 1, you have from 1 day to 3 months. At level 2, you have from 3 months to 1 year. At level 3, you have 1 to 2 years, and etc. 5 year, 10 year, 20 year. So the higher stratum, the more developed your cognitive system. This is a variable of time span, and correspondingly, different level of people can work on different complexity tasks. So from only simple tasks, daily, weekly, monthly, to some kind of managerial work function, all the way to CEO level, like that. So at the corporate world, I used to work at this level. So I'm glad that this theory shares good. But very interestingly, during the peak time of political correctness in this country, I don't know in Canada, his work, Elliott's Jaques' work was completely, or most of them disappeared from the internet. You just cannot find him, and you cannot dig out his early writings and his early books. But only after last term of Trump, I mean, since 2016 or later, his work is again become discoverable on the internet. So that is an interesting sidekick I offer you, that you may try to do some research on him. Now, but most importantly, he uses, also here, similar to Loring, he uses 4 types of logics to mark the development of the cognitive capacity. In terms of at an earlier stage, you can do either or. You use some kind of a declarative logic. So it's a very assertive thinking. Then later, only after later, you get more experience and more learnings, and you can develop and logic. So you can see fact 1, see fact 2. You can see perspective 1, also perspective 2, and you can make them together and to see them, to see the forest instead of just seeing one tree. And further development, your logic capacity becomes you are able to do if, then, and then that goes on, and if and only if. So step by step, here, there, and when you go to a next level of abstraction, you start this pattern again. I think it's amazing that Elliott Jaques figured out this. So here you run from one circle at a symbolic verbal level, but after you reach to this level, you become starting with thinking with an abstract conceptual chunks. So this process repeat, and on this table is only the author only included 8 levels here, because he actually, using his logic, he has actually built 16 levels, and 4 level below this one, and the 4 level above this one. And the below one are for babies, young children, or even teenagers undergoing their developmental process. And the higher ones are very, very unique human beings that they are too few to come to this table. People like Albert Einstein, people like even Elon Musk thinks at that level they can achieve hugely, and they are beyond this 8 level. So that's Elliott Jaques' first clue. I highly recommend, Laurie, you do some research on him, and maybe some combination of what you are doing here combined with this. And my contribution could be use the multiple self-organizing theory. I mean, Hans von First, Ross Espy, Prigogine, and Harkin, they all do one-step self-organization. So from chaos into a stable, ordered status. That's just one phase. So my suggestion is we need to perceive in multiple steps. So once you reached the ultimate order at one level, then a new process may start going on. at the next level. For example, jury is concentrating on the chemical level of the biological system. Then the chemical level reach to the certain level of maturity, and new processes start going on within the variables and not chemical anymore, but the symbols, concepts, and language terms, and build up and up and up. So I propose a tower-like structure to combine with this. Now, let me go to the second one. The second one is totally irrelevant. It's very technical. It's on a hobby of photographers. They compare different cameras and different lenses. So you might be wondering why some cameras are so expensive and some cameras are so cheap, like a children's toy. The secret is within the technological quality and the effort they put into the camera. So how do you compare two different cameras? Of course, you will compare whatever they generated, the picture for you. This company named the DXOmark, they developed quantitative measurement indexes to measure how good a camera is. So if you use camera as a much more simplified model of our cognition system, see, our cognitive system bring us something we call my mind is there. It's built up by my company. And a camera gives you something called a picture. Okay, the picture is generated by camera, and the camera has two major departments. The department one is a sensor department. For digital camera sensors in the rank of the same sensor sizes, DXOmark offers 4 criteria, 4 measurement. Okay, first one they call for layman, not 4, it's actually 3. The first one they call portrait. Technical term is called color depth. It means how good that picture gives you feeling when you look at it. So it's actually vividness and the color details of a person's portrait. Okay, that's first index. They can quantify it. And the second one is they call landscape. It's actually the sensor resolution. It gives you the capacity of how detailed, especially if you see those very fancy artistic photographer work in a museum, blow to the whole up to the whole wall size, then you can see the amazing details being exposed. Much more fancy than your point and shoot simple camera. So sensor resolution is actually technically is the number of the pixels in the sensor. That's countable. So when you buy a simple camera, it has 5 million pixels. But nowadays, a good camera used by hobbyists can have 15 million pixels. Now, the third one they call sports. Sports actually means how fast, when people moving super fast, can you capture that? Then, if you can, you need to be very quick. So there is another measurement called high ISO performances. The high ISO you have, the less noise in your picture. So using these 3 basic measurements, they can use a formula to generate a total score. The magic thing is, if you see a higher total score for a camera, and definitely this camera will be more expensive than the one with a lower score. And what I found is amazingly is this thing is very consistent to my subjective judgment. So when I see a different picture, two pictures put together, and this one looks a lot lousy, the other one looks, oh, amazing. And if you check the DXOmark, the one I see amazing had a higher score, definitely, each time. So that's very impressive to me. The second big part of the camera is the lens, of course. The lens is the optical function trying to produce this what our eye sees as accurately as possible. So they have five variables here: sharpness, which means optical resolution; distortion, which means the fidelity of what is seen. Some lousy lenses can twist your image to a very funny situation. And the third one is called vignetting, which is all lenses have different power in the middle of the image and the corner image. So normally the corner is pretty weak. So sometimes the corner image has a dark tone. So that also says something like it's almost like a system thinking. It's like how clear you can see the whole picture, or okay, you can only focus on the certain smaller tunnel vision area. Okay, fourth one is called the transmission. It's about the speed or the sensitivity of this lens. And the last one's chromatic aberration, which is the quality of how good it is focused. Now, these five variables measuring how much effort you put into manufacture this lens. So the most expensive lenses are made by Leica. So I visited in Germany, I visited Leica factory, and I realized why their lens is always better than others. It's because their insane level of quality control. How do they do that? First they need to melt the glass. So they use those stoves to cook the glass. Now, when you cook the glass and let the glass cool down, in that process, Jerry, your chemical knowledge, if you cool down fast, then the glass, the crystal formation and the connections of the structures among the crystals may have faults. And those faults influenced the performance of your final lens. So these German people, they cooked a whole stove of glass. They let it cool down slowly in 1 year time. So it's not just the next day you can have your glass. You cooked this stove of glass, then you put it aside. Keep heating it, slowly reduce the temperature. So next year at this time, you have your glass. And secondly, they are very picky when they finally produce the lens pieces. So they went through a highly selective process, and they threw away a lot of, and they really literally threw them away. So normal company and less than Leica, they will just put those back to the stove and reuse them. the German, the Leica people said, we just threw them away. So that explains why Leica lens are so expensive. I own a lot of vintage cameras, but I only have one Leica lenses because they're so expensive. So that is another score system to measure the quality. Or here, our ambition is to measure the quality of a cognition and so make something better than IQ, EQ, something better and something more useful. The last one is this method called Brenizer. Now, I mentioned before that different sizes of sensor. Earlier photographer cameras have a very large film, a large film like a 5 by 7 inch, like 4 by 5 inch is pretty big. And as the camera technology develops, the camera was manufactured smaller and smaller and smaller. So the most popular one is they call 35 millimeter, which dominate the market for a long time. The 35 millimeter is handy and convenient, but it lost something that a lot of artists appreciate. It's called a DOF. It's called a depth of field. Example is this picture. This young lady in the middle, the picture is pretty sharp. The image is very sharp. But before and after her, the scenario blurred beautifully. So creating a dreamlike effect. Now, for the smaller sensor camera, it's very hard to reproduce this effect. So Brenizer method is very interesting. He simply take multiple pictures. So when facing a scene, like this one, he might take 9 different pictures and stitch them together. So he can use a smaller sensor, but use multiple times, multiple locations, combine the picture together to emulate a larger sensor effect. So I think this is very similar to one version of what we call system thinking. Well, system thinking, it starts from when you can think about perspectives from other people's show. So system thinking starts from Lauren jump out of Lauren and coming to Jerry's show and see things in Jerry's way, and also jump out again to Jason's show and see things from Jason's view. Now, if you can do that, then you combine them together. That is something very designable. I mean, very fancy. So, okay. So this is called the Brenizer method. A lot of photographers love that and play with that. My final slide is this. So, combine everything above. I'm sending you a proposal. Not only combine these 3 clues mentioned today, but also combine Lauren's previous work. And not enough. Lauren's work can be thought as a development or further development from Myers-Briggs, which is a development from Rome. And maybe we can build in some multiple layer self-organizing system framework here, so that we might be able to see some interesting structure inside our brain. So what is this thing called cognition really means, and how have we developing it, and what will be a good way in education to use this new model, and of course to test or to falsify in Giraud's term. So I'm done.
So very nicely done, I would say, in terms of the effort to, and the conceptualization of the distinctions from the very abstract to the conceptual conclusions of scale of space and time. So that part is clear. But I think perhaps the most important part is this separation of the notion of space from the notion of time. This is something that the physics community, of course, absolutely abhors, because the notion of space-time is so intimately connected with quantum mechanics and with group theory that they use to describe physics. So from this perspective, Jason, I think you are very critically challenging the foundational issues that guide physical thought.
No, I think I was following their path because here, space-time is already combined as one entity, but we can delineate it into different dimensions. So we can still use mapping this entity into what I call space one is structure. Space two is the culture, the context, the informatic condition part. So the time dimension one, also time dimension two. Time dimension one, we can perceive an object as a procedure or function. Okay, actually, I define procedure as a chain of functions. So each step is a function. Now, for the long consequences, you have a procedure. For a doctor want to having operation on you, they follow a procedure, a standard operating procedure. So that is what time one. But generally, we have time two. That is the newcomers, the emerging new phenomena after in this context. So you can see things on different like pictures. Okay, here you have 4 different pictures, but you combine them together, and then you have this combined word space-time, combined cognitive space-time. So in China we say your mind is so big or your mind is so small. That means something. So that big and the small is using the metaphor for space. And also in Chinese we say, okay, look further. I mean, look in the future. Not just don't look under your nose. So that is the dimension of time. So if you can look beyond in your lifetime, you have a bigger space time.
Jason, there's an area of logic and science which you might want to look at more carefully. This is the notion of a signature. Now, the notion of a signature was adopted in the computer science world to do with the so-called institutionalization of algorithms. And this is what Girard was talking about, I believe, that, well, your explanation that you've given, Jason, for this slide and the clear semantic distinctions of 1, 2, 3, 4, and 2 spaces and 2 times contradict the philosophy you're expressing. And so this is what the signature logic is attempting to cope with. And so
So
I'll
you
leave it
think
at that.
it's better
Gerard,
to name them differently?
you can name them whatever you wish. It's a phenomena that's of concern.
Well, the AIC people was talking about the science 1, science 2, cybernetics 1, cybernetics 2. So it's just our understanding of the subject has become so detailed that they need to be distinguished. I mean, make a distinction among or put them into different categories. So it's a growth of complexity again. Yes, Gerard.
Very interesting, especially your first slide, if I remember correctly. It identifies the need to combine or to replace a number of psychological measures such that it is actually a better and more general measure, IQ, EQ, etc. It might be useful, yes. And the point is, I think it has been a dream in psychology to identify this kind of measure. But in the case of psychology, there has been a development where, people identified a number of psychological measures and they were collected in a book. And then there was a second edition, and then this third edition was 2 books, and then 3 books, and then 4 books, and then 5 books. And then the authors said, we know that you can expand, but this becomes an endless game, because you can always specify some measure into parts, and then it becomes unclear what the meaning of the measure is. So is this type of example a reason for you to give up this dream or not?
Well, I think I have, since I quit the academic job and went into the corporate world, and build up most of my experience there. So I always focus on the applicability of theories. So the first time when Lauren discussed this with me, I immediately look into the direction of how are we going to use this as a tool in the future. The tool of education, the tool of making peace. So if people can understand our cognitive system better, maybe less fight, less war could be a hopeful future. So I actually do not, I have no discrimination on one school force or the other. I just check, can I use that? So I don't know if that answers your question, but this proposal today, majorly to Lauren and also to all of you, is can we work together to make this thing concrete? Again, I'm falling back to a concrete textbook type of thing, so that we can develop it into, application and mobile phone, and so that people can use that to improve their cognitive, or at least to understand their cognitive capacity. Elliott Jaques did that successfully in his way. So he helped reorganize U.S. armies structure. And also, there are a number of management consultants following Elliott Jaques' work to use his method to do the organizational reform. So maybe we can do something better than that or more than that. At this point, I don't know. I'm just throwing the brainstorming ideas to the table. What do you think?
Well,
Giving Jerry a headache.
do you think that an IQ measurement is not sufficient for certain purposes?
For
And an
certain
EQ is
people,
for
they
other
instead.
purposes. What you are asking for is a measure that would help achieve any purpose. And I don't think that it is clear to me why you would be part of that dream.
Okay, I would, looking at it.
Because the conflicts around these IQ, EQ, and even group quotient, maybe the noise coming from political side or from ideological ranks, they are, or for example, Charles Murray, who wrote the book Bell Curve, and he was criticized so much that bell curve becomes a ghost bad looking thing. So when I have to reinitialize the discussion on the cognitive capacity side, I have to use the term bell curve 2.0. So that is what I'm saying is different from Charles Murray's bell curve number 1, because they, in their study, they link the cognitive capacity with the color and race. So that made a splash, and the people are angry about that. Now, if we focus not on the race, the skin color, but if we focus on actual complexity work that a person can handle, can successfully perform the job description, then we might have a better tool, better than IQ, EQ thing. That's my thought.
Technically, in all these measures, you are partitioning a set and mapping it onto some numbers. So if you have a set, let us say, of 1 million people, you have a very large variety of partitions. And so whatever your aim of combining them, it's extremely difficult to identify which you want to use for which purpose. Well, it's sufficient, I think, this point.
Just a comment on what I've read about IQ. It seems to be measuring something that's really there, but it seems to be a measure of the ability to use technical thought and not the other ways in which the mind can function. So EQ attempts to balance that by looking at the emotional quotient. So that kind of addresses what Gerard is complaining about. It's valid, but it's limited.
That's right.
Oh, it goes deeper than that. It goes much deeper than that. It goes with the notion that you can symbolize something about this brain of ours, that it's called intelligence. And furthermore, that you can assign mathematical symbols that are meaningful in making measurements of this thing we call intelligence. Now, my experience in life itself is that there's this enormous varieties of forms of intelligences and their individual capabilities to do particular task. And this is what Gerard was talking about in the notion of a mathematical partition, that this enormous variety of human individuality is simply there. It exists in nature. It is, if you would, the concrete structures of the brain that are all independently developed from their own individual genetic systems. And so I would repeat that each individual brain is developed from its individual genetic system, and that genetic system is something that sets the foundation for the development of the brain and hence its forms of intelligence. So Gerard's comment goes much deeper than being a complaint. It's really about the basic structure of what it means to be human beings.
Okay, let's look at the second slide, the next slide, the levels of management, and that kind of addresses this in that the idea there is in each case, it relates to free will because at each case, the manager is choosing between one option and another, but the ability to make the free will depends upon the cognitive programming and what level of abstraction or specialization or what area of specialization it's working within. So yeah, Jerry, you're right, but I think that you can still you see that there's free will, but it's free will within a context, and that context requires a cognitive development, which starts from the genetic framework, but is not totally bound by the genetic framework.
And then the question becomes, how does this relate to logic, to formal logic, to the use of rationalizations in human behavior? And this is why I recommended the book on signatures and the institutional logics that's been developed within the computer science community.
Okay, we are over time now. I've reached our time. Jerry, regarding to another session, what date do you prefer?
It would have to be the last one because I haven't really thought how I would respond. And what's happened today has a big influence on what I will say in 3 weeks.
Okay, so the little folk broadcast, Jerry and the two Chinese scholar is going to have another session related to this one. So I hope you will watching our meeting reminders to attend that one. And Laurie, would you like to share the slides with the whole club member?
Sure, I'll send it to you, or
Yeah, you
what?
sent to me, and these two slides I was just sent to the whole group.
Should I send two versions, the existing version and then an expanded one with that? I didn't use that many. Well, there's a few.
Yeah, of course, always expanded.
Okay, I'll send
Expanded.
both because the expanded one then messes up the formatting.
Oh, okay. Okay, I'll just share the more clear one and
Okay.
and keep the complicated one for myself. Okay, so that's all for today.
Well,
Where is my control button? Okay, stop sharing and end the meeting. Thank you very much.